explosion. It has been suggested it was sabotage. As I say, no proof to underscore that. But you know, arms dumps are a target for sure now, because this kind of new mobilised army of the opposition needs weapons, it needs ammunition, and of course that will feed their fight against Gaddafi forces. So you know, we have seen in the last few days that the Libyan Air Force under Gaddafi's control have been trying to bomb those arms dumps, so it could fit in, but you know, you never know here. Lots of confusion, lots of speculation.
Tony, is it fair to describe Benghazi as firmly in rebel hands? What's the mood in the city?
Very strong, very buoyant mood. I think they're coming to the realisation that perhaps the outcome is in their own hands. They did think in the beginning that Gaddafi would leave peacefully. They then thought the international community would take steps and force him out. I think the pendulum has swung now. They believe it's in their own hands. So they're actually calling, they're answering the call to arms. They're coming there from all over eastern Libya. They're bringing their weapons, they're getting whatever training they can, and they're moving on. As you've been reporting that Ras Al Ain, for example, opposition forces have been fighting there, they've taken control. They're talking about the stronghold, the Gaddafi stronghold of Sirte, his hometown, but that's very well fortified, we understand, something like 4,000 troops. That's a different ball game entirely. From what I've seen in the last few days, there's not the sufficient organisation, sufficient experience to take on a target like that. But these people are in the mood to do anything. I think they're prepared to go as far as it takes, and for whatever cost now, to liberate the entire country.
You talk about the lack of organisation, Tony. We're hearing today of heavy fighting in AlJazeera. I know you're in the east and AlJazeera is in the west, but are the people who are in control of Benghazi in touch with the rebels in the west of the country?
Yes, we're getting information that there is contact, you know, sporadic contact. It's not, as I say, no organised sort of ham radio or connections or walkie-talkies. It's through mobile phone. That's very, you know, hit and miss here at the moment. But there is contact. There is a tremendous spirit, and of course, all eyes are on Al-Zawawi now, and also Tripoli. The call at prayers yesterday was to, you know, for Gaddafi to stand down, for the people to stand up, and for people with weapons to come forward and fight for the liberation of the country. So there is this now liberation spirit sweeping through this country. They think they're going to have to fight for it, though.
Tony, many thanks. Tony Bertley reporting live there from Benghazi in the east of Libya. Well, joining me now in the studio is Tarek Youssef, Dean at the Dubai School of Government, happens to be Libyan, also happens to be from the city of Benghazi. Thank you very much indeed for being with us once again. What do you make of when you see, you know, Al Jazeera's reporter there in Benghazi? It's in rebel hands. I mean, how does that make you feel?
A sense of victory, a sense of freedom, and a sense of the Benghazians and the people of the East, at least at this point, controlling their destiny and re-emerging and displaying a kind of solidarity and a collective resolve to both strengthen the gains they have, consolidate the hold they have maintained, and thinking also about what has been suggested to be a liberation mood at the moment, which suggests that the people of the East, or at least those cities that have been liberated both west of Tripoli and east of Tripoli, might very well take matters into their own hand and launch a massive assault on Tripoli at some point in time.
Do you think that is possible given their present state? Tony was talking to us about the will is there, but there's clearly a lack of organisation.
Absolutely. I think no organisation, no centralised command and control structure. We don't know how much ammunition or weapons they have. It would be utterly premature and perhaps naive for them to think that they can take it to Tripoli soon. But to essentially consolidate the gains and to squeeze Tripoli from both sides might be a strategy that would pay off and at least help convince enough people to defect from around Gaddafi. And the one city that stands clearly in between them and Tripoli right now is Sirte, where he maintains a very strong military hold.
And what do you make of the fighting that we're seeing today, which appears to be centred on the oil-rich areas, the key oil installations?
Quite strategic. The future of Libya, however Libya emerges, is going to be in many ways driven by who controls access to oil resources. Ras Al Ain, Brega are important strategic oil terminals, refineries. They supply a lot of the refined products. Whoever holds them ultimately will have the resources that will give them the right to govern and to lead and to perhaps maintain this fight from a long-term perspective.
Bear with me for just a second. I want you to listen to what another guest has been saying about the role of the international community in all of this, in particular the United States. The Obama administration is coming under increasing pressure to impose a no-fly zone over Libya, but so far it's ruled out getting involved in any military action in the country. Earlier we spoke to Zbigniew Brzezinski, a former national security advisor to the Carter administration, who says that the US should be playing a more strategic role.
We are not destined, nor should we be, to act as the sole policeman of the world, whether it is in our interest or it is not. I think we have to judge each case on its merits. But in this particular case, I do think that some greater but indirect involvement would send the right message and move events in Libya in the right direction. I think a deployment of ships right off the shores of Tripoli would in itself send an important message. If it was tied also to the possible unilateral evacuation of Westerners, it would send a stronger message. And all of that would be an indication to the very uncertain and divided Libyan military that it is not in their interest to be supporting Gaddafi.
So what do you make of what you just heard? So should the US be getting involved, or should it be standing well back?
Short of a physical military onslaught, whether by air or naval or ground troops, the US can do a lot at the moment to send a message that the outside world, the international community, is determined to see Gaddafi depart, is determined to prevent any further bloodshed, and is determined perhaps to prevent him from changing the facts on the ground. I think that was the lesson from the Iraq war when Saddam Hussein brutally bombarded the civilians using helicopter gunships. I think the international community will move soon. We've seen kind of an acceleration in their response in the past few days and now a slowdown. That suggests that perhaps they're sort of examining the options, having internal discussions, and they'll come up with a game plan. They certainly have enough assets within the theater of operation right now to give them flexibility in how to respond at a moment's notice.
Okay. Tariq Youssef, I want to get your view on something else that is developing, two other developments in the wider region right now. Details are just coming in to us. The demonstrations in Libya reverberating, of course, throughout the Arab world, and within the past few minutes we've been getting word that Saudi Arabia has banned all protests and marches in the country. State television says that decision was made after minority Shia Muslims in the kingdom staged small protests in the oil-producing eastern province. State television also says that security forces will use all measures to prevent any attempt to disrupt public order. And also in the last hour, Oman's Sultan Qaboos has replaced 2 ministers. That's days after protests erupted there, demanding an end to corruption and reforms in Oman. That's according to state media. Tariq Youssef, what do you make of those developments? I suppose the Saudi Arabian one in particular.
I think most countries in the Arab world right now reacting to what they're seeing in Tunis, Egypt, Libya, Bahrain, Yemen, are feeling vulnerable, feeling insecure. The instinctive response is always going to be a security response, is always going to be a no protest, maintain social stability, internal coherence. But clearly, the